Dr. Henri Chaoul.
No doctor, Henri, just
Hello,
Henri.
So it's the second time actually we meet. We met last year at the same time when you resigned as a former advisor to the Ministry of Finance back then. Unfortunately, nothing has been done, literally nothing. We have more corruption, more incompetence. The country is heading to the worst. But today we're not here to talk about the problems, because we all know the problems are here. We're here to talk about solutions, because you actually still give us hope when you worked on a plan for the restructuring of banks. And this is what we're going to discuss in this talk today. But before going into the plan, I'd like to do a quick introduction about Dr. Henri Chaoul, about Henri. So Henri is the founder and managing partner of Lebanon Partners corporate finance boutique firm. He was also the advisor of the Ministry of Finance from February 2020 to June 2020 before resigning, because there was a lack of reforms, of will to do any reforms, as you said back then. And you were also member of the official delegation representing Lebanon in the negotiations with the IMF. So Henri, let's start with the first question. Since you resigned last year, did you imagine that things would get that worse and that we would reach that point today? And what were the indicators back then?
Well, first, thank you for hosting this talk. Look, I resigned about a year ago. It was June 18, I think, if my recollection is correct. And as you said, and I said in my resignation letter, the reason I resigned is because we knew there was going to be no reform. Obviously, we were all expecting the worst, but this is beyond belief.
We're going to talk about the plan, the banking sector restructuring proposal that you have here in front of you. But I'd like us to go through it briefly and just tackle the important point, because I know that you have three options, option A, B, C. So if you could just tell the listeners about these options, what would be the haircut share, what would be the Lirafication part, and about the shareholders dilution.
First, I want to tell you something about this document or the plan or the presentation. I'm part of a much larger team that has been working on this for quite a number of weeks. And we decided to call ourselves the Bat People, B-A-T, like Batman, right? Because of a number of things. So if you see this, okay, you see Gotham, the city of crime, which is exactly what's been happening in Lebanon for, I would say the longest time, but especially what's happening over the last 2 years. It is literally criminal what's going on. And we're trying here to see, do you see this? Do you see the Bat People?
Yeah, oh my God.
The objective of the plan was to say, we need to have a holistic solution. So when we say holistic, means complete, takes care of all the stakeholders, all of them. And we have a number of stakeholders. So I'll focus on option A. Why? Because option A is the one that is the cleanest. Because we're dealing with numbers that are extremely tight, it is the one that allows me to take care of everyone in a fair manner. Let me put it this way. The basically bottom line, that option is saying what? Everyone who had $50,000 in his bank account or more will be protected up to that amount. In addition to that, 30% of the remaining balance in your account will be protected. And I'll come back to say why it's protected. Protected means you will receive it ultimately in foreign currency, okay? So if you had an account for $100,000, so the first $50,000 is protected. It will remain in your account. It will be paid ultimately. The remaining $50,000, 30% of that will be protected. So that's another $15,000. So you can do the math depending on the tranches you are. There's a balance that remains. What are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to do two things. That is the amount that is what we call subject to a haircut. So it's going to go from your account. It won't be there anymore. But in return, you will get two things. So half of that balance, you will get Lebanese pounds in return through what I call a responsible Lirafication. And that's very important. I'm not doing what the governor is doing. We're not giving it at 12,000 and increasing trillions of dollars, every year in the economy. Actually, the estimated amount is that there will be roughly 47 trillion that will be needed, but it will be done over 5 years at the pace of 9.5 per year to allow the central bank to absorb back that liquidity and not to be inflationary, which means in order for it not to create an increase in prices and not to cause the currency to depreciate further. The remaining half will go into a debt to equity swap, which means they will get depositors that still have money in their account will get shares in the bank in which they have their deposits. So they will become shareholders. This compensation, this scheme, if you want, or this plan, effectively does what? Number one, protects the small depositors 100%. It protects the deposits at large, if you look at all the deposits, at roughly 45% in foreign currency. So if you had an account with, an average of $200,000, you will get 45% of that amount, $90,000, that will be in your account in foreign currency. When you add the other element of Lirafication and debt to equity swap, that number of 45 goes up to something like 52, 53%. So the recovery for the depositors in general is 52 or 53. What is the recovery today? 20%, right? So obviously we're making them much better off.
But every day that goes on, the numbers that you're
it will make it more difficult to achieve. No doubt about it.
We need new numbers, new plans.
Look, you know what?
Yeah.
Last year, when we came up with the government reform plan, the Lazar plan, we could save accounts up to $500,000.
True.
Today, it's impossible. Okay? This is the crime.
Where are you starting in your plan?
The three options.
Yeah.
Option A is at 50,000. Option B is 100,000. Option C is 200,000. Unfortunately, the more you are progressive in your approach, the more difficult it gets to meet everyone's objective.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm focusing really on option A. The other thing we're doing, we are in this plan, is that for the very large depositors, okay, so depositors that have more than $2 million, okay, we're giving them a perpetual bond. So the central bank is issuing a piece of paper, an instrument, okay, that is backed by the assets that it owns, in order for it to allow it to be traded at around par value. So people can buy and sell that instrument and create liquidity out of it. It's a small amount, it's not huge, and I need to talk about why it's a small amount in a second. So to talk about social fairness and intergenerational
because there's a big issue
element
around using, assets owned by the government, because some people consider these assets are for everyone, for the whole population.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And actually, in our solution, beyond that perpetual bond, we do not contribute any state assets in the traditional sense of state assets. The final thing that we need to take care of, so depositors, we move them from behind their barricades, getting 20%, now they're getting 52% of recovery, okay? The central bank, as a result of the mechanism we clean their balance sheet so that we uncover all the losses, we write them off. I mean, the presentation will go through the technical elements of it. The current shareholders, we're telling them, okay, you know what, guys? Fair enough. You have shown your strength on the political landscape, okay? And we understand we need to give you a carrot. And that carrot will be in the form of not full dilution, like we had in the Lazar plan, even if a full dilution is the correct financial answer. But I think we need to get, as I said at the beginning, into a pragmatic mode and a sort of consensus around the table. So what we propose, and then it's up to the stakeholders to debate, is to dilute them to a minority position.